From the world's deepest underground mine to an ancient cedar tree older than Christianity, Ontario hides jaw-dropping secrets beneath its familiar surface. This province isn't just maple syrup and politeness. It's home to underground tsunamis, a mysterious frozen wasteland that became Canada's largest forest, and the planet's biggest underground shopping complex where 200,000 people disappear daily. Here are 25 insane facts you've never heard about Ontario. Fact 1. World's deepest base metal mine. Deep beneath the forests of northern Ontario lies one of the most extraordinary mining operations on the planet. The Kidd Creek Mine, located 24 kilometers north of Timmins, descends an astonishing 9,889 feet below sea level, making it the deepest base metal mine in the world. To put this incredible depth into perspective, if you could somehow flip Mount Everest upside down and place it inside this mine shaft, the mountain's peak would still be buried underground. The mine extends nearly 2 miles straight down into the Earth's crust, reaching depths where the rock pressure is so intense that special engineering techniques are required just to keep the tunnels from collapsing. The story of Kidd Creek began in 1959 when the Texas Gulf Sulfur Company discovered what would become one of the largest volcanogenic, massive sulfide ore deposits ever found. The deposit sits within the Abitibi Greenstone Belt, a geological formation that contains some of the oldest rocks on Earth, dating back billions of years. What makes this mine particularly valuable is its rich concentration of copper, zinc, and silver, metals that are essential for modern technology and infrastructure. Swiss multinational Glencore currently owns and operates the facility, employing approximately 850 workers and contractors who descend into this underground world every day. The logistics of working at such extreme depths are mind-boggling. Miners must travel down specialized elevators for nearly 20 minutes just to reach their work areas, and the temperature increases significantly as they go deeper into the earth. The mine has been continuously expanded over the decades, with recent investments extending production and deepening operations even further. Engineers have developed sophisticated ventilation systems to provide fresh air at these incredible depths, and advanced backfill systems help maintain structural integrity as ore is extracted. This underground marvel represents one of humanity's most ambitious attempts to extract resources from the deepest accessible reaches of our planet. Fact 2. Ancient cedar older than Islam. Clinging to the limestone cliffs near Lion's Head on the Niagara Escarpment stands a living piece of ancient history that has witnessed over 13 centuries of human civilization. This remarkable eastern white cedar began growing in the year 688 AD, making it 1,337 years old and the oldest known tree in all of Ontario. To truly grasp the age of this ancient cedar, consider that when its first roots took hold in the rocky cliff face, the Islamic faith had not yet been founded, which wouldn't occur until about 50 years later, in 610 AD. This tree was already decades old when Charlemagne was crowned Holy Roman Emperor, and it had been growing for over 300 years before the Vikings reached North America. The tree survives in one of the most challenging environments imaginable, growing directly out of the vertical limestone cliffs that form part of the Niagara Escarpment. These harsh conditions, with minimal soil, constant wind exposure, and extreme temperature fluctuations, have actually contributed to the cedar's incredible longevity. The lack of nutrients and moisture forces the tree to grow extremely slowly, creating dense, durable wood that resists decay and disease. Scientists discovered this ancient cedar as part of the Niagara Escarpment Ancient Tree Atlas project, which documented old-growth trees throughout the region. The researchers used core sampling techniques to determine the tree's exact age, counting growth rings that reveal not just years, but also climate patterns from centuries past. What makes this discovery even more fascinating is that eastern white cedars are known for their ability to live for centuries in these cliff environments, with many other specimens in the area being several hundred years old. The oldest hardwood tree in Ontario, by comparison, is a black gum near Niagara Falls that reaches 580 years old, making this cliff-dwelling cedar more than twice as ancient and a true survivor from the early medieval period. Fact 3. Underground city larger than Manhattan. Beneath the bustling streets of downtown Toronto lies a hidden world that rivals some of the largest cities on Earth. The Path System, officially recognized by Guinness World Records as the world's largest underground shopping complex, stretches for 30 kilometers through a network of tunnels, walkways, and climate-controlled passages that connect more than 75 buildings across the city's core. This underground metropolis serves over 200,000 people every single day, making it busier than many small cities. The system contains 371,600 square meters of retail space, housing more than 1,200 shops, restaurants, and services that generate approximately $1.7 billion in sales annually. To put this massive scale into perspective, you could walk the entire length of Manhattan and still not cover as much ground as the PATH system's interconnected routes. The underground city began modestly in 1900 when the T. Eaton Company built the first tunnel to connect their main department store with their bargain annex. The network grew slowly at first, with only 5 tunnels existing by 1917, but exploded in size during the 1960s and 70s as Toronto's downtown core developed rapidly. City planners realized that moving pedestrian traffic underground would relieve congestion on the increasingly crowded sidewalks above. What makes the PATH truly remarkable is that it operates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, providing a completely weatherproof environment for commuters, shoppers, and tourists. During Toronto's harsh winters, when temperatures can drop well below freezing, or during sweltering summer days, hundreds of thousands of people can travel between office buildings, hotels, subway stations, and shopping centers without ever stepping outside. The system connects major landmarks including Union Station, the CN Tower, the Hockey Hall of Fame, and the Eaton Center, creating a parallel underground version of downtown Toronto that most visitors never even realize exists. Fact 4. Mysterious lake tsunamis strike 106 times yearly. Most people think of tsunamis as ocean phenomena, but Ontario's Great Lakes experience their own version of these massive waves, an average of 106 times every year. These weather-generated waves, called meteotsunamis, are created when powerful thunderstorms and atmospheric pressure changes move across the lake surface at just the right speed and direction to amplify the water movement below. Lake Michigan proves to be the most active of all the Great Lakes, generating 51 meteotsunamis annually, while Lake Erie follows with 27 per year. Ontario's own Lake Ontario experiences about 5 meteotsunamis each year, though these numbers represent only the waves large enough to be detected and recorded by scientific instruments. Many smaller meteotsunamis occur without anyone noticing them at all. The process begins when a line of severe thunderstorms moves across a lake at the same speed as the wave building beneath it. This synchronized movement amplifies the wave, much like pushing a child on a swing at exactly the right moment to make them go higher. As the enhanced wave reaches shallow water near the shore, it can suddenly surge upward, creating what appears to be a wall of water that floods beaches, harbors, and coastal areas. The most devastating example occurred during the Great Lakes storm of 1913, when meteorologists recorded waves reaching 35 feet in height across multiple lakes. This catastrophic weather event, fueled by the lake's relatively warm waters meeting cold air masses, created hurricane-force winds and massive meteotsunamis that sank numerous ships and claimed many lives. More recently, in 1954, a 10-foot meteotsunami struck Chicago's lakefront during what had been a calm, pleasant day. The sudden wall of water caught hundreds of people completely off guard, sweeping several anglers off a pier and tragically drowning 7 people. This event demonstrates how dangerous meteotsunamis can be, since they often arrive during fair weather conditions, hours after the storm that created them has already passed over the area. Fact 5. Toronto's highest temperature beat Death Valley. On July 10, 1936, Toronto experienced one of the most extreme weather events in Canadian history when the temperature soared to 41 degrees Celsius, or 105 degrees Fahrenheit. This scorching reading made Canada's largest city temporarily hotter than many famous desert locations around the world, including parts of Death Valley on that same day. This record-breaking temperature was part of what became known as the deadliest heat wave in North American history, a catastrophic weather event that stretched across the continent for nearly 2 weeks. The heat dome that settled over eastern North America was so intense and persistent that it claimed the lives of 1,180 Canadians, with many of the victims being elderly people and infants who were most vulnerable to the extreme conditions. The heat was so severe that it caused infrastructure to fail in ways that seem almost impossible to believe today. Steel railway lines twisted and warped under the intense sun. Bridge girders buckled from thermal expansion, and concrete sidewalks cracked and heaved. Fruit literally baked on trees before it could be harvested, and crops wilted across vast areas of farmland. The situation became even more tragic when 400 people drowned while desperately seeking relief in lakes, rivers, and other bodies of water. What made this heat wave particularly dangerous was that it occurred before the widespread availability of air conditioning, leaving most people with no effective way to cool down. Hospitals were overwhelmed with heat-related illnesses, and morgues ran out of space to store the victims. The infrastructure of the time simply wasn't designed to handle such extreme temperatures for such an extended period. Environment and Climate Change Canada still recognizes this temperature as Toronto's official all-time high, a record that has stood for nearly 90 years. The same temperature reading was also recorded earlier that same year on another brutally hot day, making 1936 a year that Toronto residents would never forget. Fact 6. Frozen Niagara creates 10-story ice mountains. When winter temperatures plunge to extreme lows around Niagara Falls, one of nature's most spectacular transformations takes place as massive ice formations build up to heights reaching 10 stories tall. These towering glacial structures, known as ice bridges, form when ice chunks from Lake Erie flow over the falls and accumulate in the lower Niagara River, where they freeze together into enormous masses that can rival the height of apartment buildings. The process begins when ice from the vast expanse of Lake Erie breaks up and travels down the Niagara River, eventually cascading over the falls along with the rushing water. As this wet ice hits the turbulent pool below, the constant spray and mist from the falls combined with sustained freezing temperatures causes the ice chunks to bond together and build upward layer by layer. During particularly severe winters, these formations can reach incredible heights equivalent to a 10-story building, creating a landscape that looks more like an Arctic glacier than the familiar tourist destination. Historical records show that these ice bridges became so solid and extensive that people once walked out onto them for entertainment and refreshments. Beginning in the 1880s, it became a popular winter activity for visitors to venture onto the frozen surface, where entrepreneurs set up temporary huts selling food and drinks. Families would gather on this natural ice platform to enjoy the unique winter spectacle from directly below the thundering falls. This dangerous tradition came to an abrupt and tragic end in 1912 when a sudden warming spell caused the ice bridge to break apart unexpectedly. 3 people lost their lives as sections of the massive ice formation shifted and cracked beneath their feet, ending the era of public access to these frozen structures. Today, while the ice bridges still form during exceptionally cold winters, authorities strictly prohibit anyone from walking on them, allowing visitors to admire these towering ice mountains only from the safety of the surrounding observation areas. Fact 7. Windsor records Canada's most extreme humidex. In 1953, the city of Windsor, Ontario, recorded a humidex reading of 52, establishing what would remain Canada's most extreme measurement of apparent temperature for over half a century. This staggering reading meant that while the actual air temperature may have been in the high 30s Celsius, the combination of heat and humidity made it feel like 52 degrees to anyone stepping outside, creating conditions that were literally dangerous to human health. The humidex, which stands for humidity index, is a uniquely Canadian measurement that combines air temperature with relative humidity to calculate what the temperature actually feels like on human skin. When humidity levels are high, our bodies cannot cool themselves effectively through sweating, making already hot temperatures feel even more oppressive and potentially life-threatening. A humidex reading of 52 indicates conditions so severe that heat stroke becomes a serious risk for anyone spending time outdoors. Windsor's location makes it particularly susceptible to these extreme weather conditions. Situated at the southernmost tip of Ontario, directly across the Detroit River from Michigan, the city sits at nearly the same latitude as Northern California. This southern positioning, combined with its location between the Great Lakes, creates a unique microclimate where hot, humid air, masses from the American Midwest, can become trapped and intensified. The 52 humidex reading held the Canadian record for 54 years, making Windsor famous among weather enthusiasts and meteorologists across the country. This extreme measurement stood as a testament to just how unbearable summer conditions could become in southwestern Ontario. Until Carman, Manitoba finally broke the record in 2007 with an even higher reading. During that record-breaking day in Windsor, residents would have experienced conditions similar to those found in tropical climates during their most oppressive heat waves. Air conditioning was far less common in the 1950s, meaning most people had to endure these dangerous conditions with only fans and cool baths for relief. Fact 8. Ghost towns swallowed by government order. In the heart of what is now Algonquin Provincial Park, a bustling sawmill town called Kiosk once thrived with 600 residents and more than 80 buildings spread across its organized community layout. During its peak in the 1960s, Kiosk was a complete town with homes, businesses, a school, a post office, and all the infrastructure needed to support families whose lives revolved around the lumber industry that had brought prosperity to this remote corner of northern Ontario. The town had grown steadily since its establishment as a railway stop along the Canadian Northern Railway line that connected Sudbury's mining operations with other parts of Canada. For decades, Kiosk served as a vital hub where logs harvested from the surrounding wilderness were processed and shipped to markets across the country. Families built their lives around the steady work provided by the sawmill operations, creating a tight-knit community that seemed destined to continue for generations. However, everything changed when the Ontario government decided to expand Algonquin Provincial Park and implement new environmental protection policies. Officials determined that the industrial operations in Kiosk were incompatible with the park's conservation mandate, and despite the town's long history and established community, they ordered a complete evacuation of all residents and businesses. The government's directive was absolute and non-negotiable, forcing entire families to abandon homes they had lived in for years and businesses that had supported the local economy for decades. Within a relatively short period, Kiosk transformed from a vibrant community into a ghost town, with only scattered foundations, overgrown pathways, and remnants of buildings marking where hundreds of people once lived and worked. Today, campers and hikers who visit the area often have no idea they are walking through what was once a substantial town. The forest has reclaimed most of the former town site, leaving only ghostly traces of foundations and the old railway right-of-way as evidence that Kiosk ever existed at all. Fact 9. Canada's UFO landing pad built with provincial stones. When Canada celebrated its centennial in 1967, the small town of St. Paul, Alberta, decided to mark the occasion with what might be the most unusual national monument ever constructed. They built the world's first official UFO landing pad, a massive concrete structure weighing 130 tons that was designed to welcome extraterrestrial visitors to Earth. And Ontario played a direct role in this remarkable project by contributing stones that were incorporated into the monument's design. The landing pad itself is an impressive feat of construction, featuring a flat concrete platform supported by 6 pylons that rise 75 centimeters from the ground. What makes this structure truly special, from a Canadian perspective, is the stone map of Canada that decorates the back of the landing pad, created using rocks and stones collected from every single province and territory across the country, including distinctive specimens from Ontario's diverse geological landscape. The project began when St. Paul's Town Council proposed building this unique landmark as their contribution to Canada's centennial celebrations, and the federal government responded enthusiastically to the idea. On June 3, 1967, during the grand opening ceremony, St. Paul was officially declared the Centennial Capital of Canada in recognition of their creative and forward-thinking contribution to the national celebration. The landing pad includes a time capsule sealed within its concrete structure that is set to be opened in 2067, exactly 100 years after the monument's construction. The entire project was intended to symbolize Canada's openness to the world and the universe beyond, representing the nation's peaceful intentions and welcoming spirit toward all beings, whether terrestrial or otherwise. A sign beside the landing pad extends an official welcome to all intergalactic beings, while a dedicated hotline with the number 1-888-CE UFOs remains available for people to report UFO sightings. In the 1990s, the town added a saucer-shaped visitor center that houses UFO exhibits and serves as a tourist information hub, making this Alberta landmark a truly national project that continues to represent Canadian hospitality. Fact 10. Ontario's weirdest law bans parliamentary death. Hidden among Ontario's legal statutes is one of the most bizarre laws ever written, which technically makes it illegal for anyone to die within the Ontario Provincial Parliament buildings in Toronto. This centuries-old regulation, while never actually enforced in modern times, remains officially on the books as a remnant of historical legal practices designed to avoid the complicated bureaucratic procedures that would arise if someone passed away inside a government building. The law originated during an era when dying within the confines of a government facility created serious administrative headaches for officials who would then be responsible for handling all the legal formalities, investigations, and paperwork associated with a death occurring on government property. Rather than deal with these complex procedures, lawmakers simply decided to make it illegal for anyone to die within the Parliament buildings, effectively passing the responsibility elsewhere. This unusual statute reflects the practical mindset of early government administrators who preferred to solve potential problems through legislation rather than creating detailed protocols for handling such situations. The law was written during a time when government buildings were considered special jurisdictions where normal procedures might not apply, and officials wanted to ensure they wouldn't be burdened with the complicated legal processes that could arise from deaths occurring within their walls. Of course, the law presents an obvious enforcement problem since dying is generally not a voluntary act that people can control or plan around. No one has ever been prosecuted under this statute, and it would be impossible to charge someone posthumously for the act of dying in the wrong location. The regulation serves more as an interesting piece of legal history than as any kind of practical legislation. Today, the law exists primarily as a conversation starter and an example of how legal systems sometimes create unenforceable rules in attempts to solve administrative problems. Parliament security and medical staff are well equipped to handle any health emergencies that might arise within the buildings, making this antique law a curious footnote in Ontario's legal heritage. Fact 11. Lake Superior's ice volcanoes explode 20 feet high. During the harshest winter conditions along Lake Superior's Ontario shoreline, a rare and spectacular phenomenon occurs when ice formations literally explode with freezing water shooting up to 20 feet into the air. These natural wonders, known as ice volcanoes, form when a precise combination of temperature, wind direction, and wave action creates the perfect conditions for this dramatic display of nature's power. The process begins when sustained cold temperatures cause ice to build up along the shoreline, creating what's called an ice shelf that extends out into the lake. As waves continue to crash against this frozen barrier, the sloping limestone bedrock beneath the water acts like a funnel, channeling the wave energy under the ice shelf and concentrating it at weak points where the ice is thinner or has natural openings. When everything aligns perfectly, the pressurized water beneath the ice finds these weak spots and erupts upward through the frozen surface, creating a blowhole effect similar to what you might see with ocean geysers or whale spouts. The water shoots high into the air before falling back down and immediately freezing, gradually building up the ice formation into a cone-shaped structure that resembles a miniature volcano made entirely of ice. These ice volcanoes can continue erupting for hours or even days as long as the wave action persists and the ice shelf remains intact. Each eruption adds more layers of ice to the formation, creating increasingly elaborate sculptures that can grow several feet tall and take on bizarre, otherworldly shapes. The water that shoots from these formations is so cold that it begins freezing almost instantly when it hits the air, creating a continuous cycle of eruption and ice buildup. Lake Superior is particularly well suited for creating ice volcanoes because it rarely freezes completely, meaning wave action can continue throughout the winter months. The lake's enormous size generates powerful waves that provide the energy needed to drive these eruptions, while Ontario's consistently freezing temperatures ensure that the necessary ice formations can develop and persist along the shoreline. Fact 12. Underground forest discovery reveals ancient secrets. Beneath the waters of Lake Simcoe in Ontario, lies an underwater forest of ancient wooden stakes that connects directly to the origin of Toronto's name and reveals a fishing technique that indigenous peoples used for over 4,000 years. The name Toronto actually comes from the Mohawk phrase tukaronto, which means trees standing in the water, and it originally referred to the narrow channel called the Narrows, where Lake Simcoe flows into Lake Couchiching. These trees standing in the water were not natural forest growth, but rather an ingenious fishing system created by the Huron and other indigenous nations who drove wooden stakes into the lake bottom to build elaborate fish weirs. The technique involved cutting fresh saplings and placing them strategically in the water and lake sediments, where they would sprout branches and leaves, creating what appeared to be a living underwater forest that could persist for extended periods. Radiocarbon dating of surviving stakes discovered by underwater archaeologists has revealed that these fish weirs were actively used for more than 4,000 years, making them among the oldest continuously used fishing sites in North America. The wooden barriers were carefully positioned to funnel fish into specific areas where they could be easily caught, representing a sophisticated understanding of fish behavior and water flow patterns that was passed down through countless generations. The Mohawk term tukaronto eventually became associated with the entire portage route that connected Lake Ontario to Georgian Bay, which passed through this important fishing location. European mapmakers adopted various spellings of the word, with cartographer Vincenzo Coronelli believed to be the first to use the more familiar Toronto spelling on a map he created in 1695. This ancient fishing site at the Narrows was so significant to indigenous trade and survival that its name eventually traveled south along the Portage Trail, ultimately becoming attached to the location where Canada's largest city now stands, preserving the memory of those 4,000-year-old wooden stakes in one of the world's most recognized city names. Fact 13. Whistling band in Petrolia after dark. In the small town of Petrolia, Ontario, residents and visitors must keep their vocal expressions to themselves during nighttime hours, as Municipal Bylaw 772.3.6 strictly prohibits whistling, singing, shouting, or any form of loud vocalization between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. This unusual regulation makes it technically illegal to whistle your favorite tune while walking home late at night or to sing along with music during the early morning hours. Petrolia, with a population of approximately 5,000 residents, implemented this comprehensive noise bylaw as part of their municipal efforts to maintain peace and quiet during the hours when most people are trying to sleep. The regulation goes beyond simple noise complaints and specifically targets human vocal sounds, creating one of the most detailed anti-noise ordinances found in any Canadian municipality. The town of Petrolia has a unique place in Canadian history as the birthplace of the country's oil industry, where the first commercial oil well in North America was drilled in 1858. This historical significance brought prosperity and growth to the community, but it also created a tight-knit residential environment where neighbors live in close proximity to one another, making noise control a legitimate concern for maintaining quality of life. The bylaw represents the town's commitment to ensuring that all residents can enjoy peaceful evenings and restful nights without being disturbed by late-night revelers or early morning enthusiasts who might otherwise feel free to express themselves vocally. While enforcement of such specific regulations is likely rare, the law demonstrates how seriously this small Ontario community takes the concept of being considerate to one's neighbors. The regulation covers all forms of intentional vocal noise, meaning that everything from casual whistling and humming to more obvious disturbances like shouting or loud singing falls under the same prohibition. This creates an 8-hour window each night when Petrolia becomes one of the quietest towns in Ontario, at least from a legal standpoint, where even the most innocent musical expression could technically result in a bylaw violation. Fact 14. World's largest underground shopping complex. The economic powerhouse hidden beneath Toronto's downtown streets generates an astounding $1.7 billion in annual sales through more than 1,200 shops, restaurants, and services packed into 371,600 square meters of underground retail space. This massive commercial network, officially recognized as the world's largest underground shopping complex, operates as a complete parallel economy that rivals many entire shopping districts found in major cities around the globe. To put the scale of this underground marketplace into perspective, the retail space beneath Toronto's streets is larger than many of the world's most famous shopping centers. Yet most people walking above ground have no idea of the commercial activity happening directly below their feet. The path system houses everything from major department stores and luxury boutiques to food courts, banks, medical offices, and specialty services, creating a self-contained economic ecosystem that employs thousands of workers. The financial impact of this underground commerce extends far beyond simple retail sales, as the PATH system contributes significantly to Toronto's overall economic vitality by keeping shoppers and diners downtown even during harsh weather conditions. During the brutal Canadian winters, when temperatures can drop well below freezing and snow makes street-level shopping unpleasant, the climate-controlled underground environment ensures that business continues to thrive year-round. The system's economic success stems from its unique position as both a transportation network and a shopping destination, capturing customers who might otherwise travel to suburban malls or online retailers. Business owners benefit from the steady flow of commuters, office workers, and tourists who use the PATH system daily, while shoppers enjoy the convenience of accessing hundreds of businesses without dealing with traffic, parking, or weather concerns. This underground economy operates with its own seasonal patterns, special events, and promotional campaigns, functioning almost like a traditional shopping district that happens to be located entirely below street level, generating more revenue per square meter than many surface-level retail developments across North America. Fact 15. Sudbury bans bicycle sirens citywide. Cyclists in Sudbury, Ontario, must carefully consider their choice of warning devices before hitting the city's extensive network of bike paths, as municipal bylaws strictly prohibit the use of sirens on bicycles throughout the entire city. The regulation specifically mandates that cyclists can only use traditional bells or horns to alert pedestrians and other road users of their presence, making it illegal to attach any type of siren device to a bicycle frame or handlebars. This unusual bylaw reflects Sudbury's commitment to maintaining order and preventing confusion on city streets, where the sound of sirens is reserved exclusively for emergency vehicles such as police cars, fire trucks, and ambulances. City officials recognize that allowing cyclists to use sirens could create dangerous situations where motorists and pedestrians might mistake a bicycle's siren for an approaching emergency vehicle, potentially causing people to react inappropriately or panic unnecessarily. Sudbury boasts over 300 kilometers of cycling routes throughout the city, making it one of the most bicycle-friendly communities in Northern Ontario. With such an extensive network of bike paths and on-road cycling lanes, the city needed clear regulations to ensure that all users could coexist safely without creating unnecessary noise pollution or confusion about emergency signals. The bylaw demonstrates how municipal governments sometimes need to address seemingly minor issues that could have significant safety implications. While attaching a siren to a bicycle might seem like a harmless way to make cycling more fun or to get attention on busy streets, city planners understood that the distinctive sound of sirens serves an important public safety function that should not be diluted by non-emergency uses. For cyclists who want to ensure they can be heard while riding through Sudbury's neighborhoods and downtown core, traditional bicycle bells remain the preferred and legal option, providing an effective way to signal their presence while maintaining the clear distinction between recreational cycling equipment and genuine emergency vehicle warning systems that residents rely on for their safety. Fact 16. Ontario's tallest tree stands 154 feet. Standing tall in the town of Arnprior, Ontario, a magnificent white pine reaches 47 meters into the sky, equivalent to 154 feet in height, making it officially the tallest tree in the entire province. This towering giant rivals the height of coastal rainforest trees found in British Columbia and the Pacific Northwest, proving that Ontario's forests can produce specimens that compete with some of the most famous tall trees in North America. White pines have historically been among the most important trees in Ontario's forest ecosystem and played a crucial role in the province's early economic development. These majestic conifers were so valuable to the timber industry that they became known as the king of the forest and were heavily logged throughout the 18th and 19th centuries to build ships, homes, and other structures across eastern North America. The Arn Prior white pine represents a rare survivor from an era when old-growth forests covered much of southern and central Ontario. Most of the province's original white pine forests were cleared for agriculture or harvested for lumber, making ancient specimens like this one extremely valuable from both ecological and historical perspectives. The tree likely began growing sometime in the early to mid-1800s, meaning it has witnessed nearly 2 centuries of Ontario's development and change. To put the tree's impressive height into perspective, it stands taller than a 15-story building and towers over most of the surrounding forest canopy. White pines can live for several hundred years under the right conditions, and many trees throughout Ontario reach diameters of over 2 meters, creating some of the most impressive forest giants in eastern Canada. The discovery and documentation of Ontario's tallest trees is part of ongoing research efforts to locate and protect the province's remaining old-growth forest areas, which represent irreplaceable ecosystems that support biodiversity and serve as living connections to the landscape that existed before European settlement transformed much of the region. Fact 17. Welland Canal lifts ships 8 stories. The Welland Canal stands as one of Ontario's most impressive engineering achievements, using 8 massive steel locks to lift ocean-going vessels, a total height equivalent to an 8-story building, as they travel the 43 kilometers between Lake Erie and Lake Ontario. This remarkable waterway moves approximately 40 million tons of cargo annually, making it one of the busiest shipping channels in North America and a vital link in the Great Lakes shipping system. Each of the canal's 8 locks operates like a giant water elevator, filling with millions of gallons of water to raise ships or draining to lower them as they navigate around Niagara Falls. The locks are enormous steel chambers that can accommodate vessels up to 226 meters long and 24 meters wide, including massive bulk carriers that transport grain, iron ore, coal, and other commodities throughout the Great Lakes region. The engineering challenge of building this canal was enormous, as ships needed to overcome the 99-meter difference in elevation between Lake Erie and Lake Ontario. The original canal was completed in 1829, but the current version represents the 4th major reconstruction of the waterway, with the most recent upgrades completed in 1932 to handle larger modern vessels. The canal's strategic importance extends far beyond Ontario's borders, as it forms a crucial part of the St. Lawrence Seaway system that allows ships to travel from the Atlantic Ocean all the way to the heart of North America. During World War II, the canal was heavily guarded against potential sabotage due to its critical role in transporting raw materials needed for wartime manufacturing. The lock system operates around the clock during the shipping season, which typically runs from late March through December, with each complete transit through all 8 locks taking approximately 11 hours. The canal's twin flight locks allow vessels to be raised or lowered simultaneously in both directions, maximizing efficiency and keeping this vital transportation corridor moving smoothly. Fact 18. Ice pancakes form perfect frozen circles. When winter temperatures drop to around -20 degrees Celsius and flowing water meets specific current conditions, Ontario's rivers and streams can produce one of nature's most perfectly geometric phenomena known as ice pancakes. These remarkable formations appear as nearly perfect circles of ice that spin slowly in the water current, creating what looks like a collection of frozen dinner plates floating downstream. The formation process begins when small pieces of ice start to develop in flowing water that is just cold enough to freeze but still moving fast enough to prevent a solid ice sheet from forming across the entire surface. As these initial ice fragments encounter the gentle circular currents found in eddies and calm sections of rivers, they begin to rotate continuously in the flowing water, much like a record spinning on a turntable. The constant spinning motion gradually wears away any irregular edges on the ice pieces, while the continuous rotation also prevents them from freezing together with other ice chunks nearby. Over time, This natural grinding process creates increasingly perfect circles, with the ice pancakes developing raised edges as supercooled water splashes up and freezes around their perimeters during each rotation. Weather conditions must align precisely for ice pancakes to form, requiring not only the right temperature range, but also minimal wind that might disrupt the delicate spinning process. The phenomenon typically occurs during early winter when rivers are beginning to freeze, but still maintain enough current to keep the water moving. And it's most commonly observed in the calmer sections of streams where the water moves in gentle, predictable patterns. Ice pancakes can range in size from just a few centimeters across to several meters in diameter, depending on the size of the water body and the strength of the current. The larger formations are particularly striking because they maintain their perfect circular shape even as they grow, creating an almost surreal sight that looks more like deliberate human engineering than a natural weather phenomenon. Fact 19. Guelph bans lawn watering during rainstorms. The city of Guelph, Ontario has implemented one of the most logically sound yet unusually specific municipal bylaws in Canada by making it illegal for residents to water their lawns during rainstorms or to allow sprinkler water to flow off their property and onto public streets. This regulation addresses the obvious wastefulness of adding artificial irrigation to grass that is already receiving natural precipitation, while also preventing water waste and potential safety hazards on city roadways. The bylaw represents Guelph's commitment to water conservation and practical resource management, recognizing that many homeowners operate automatic sprinkler systems that continue running regardless of weather conditions. By specifically prohibiting lawn watering during rain events, the city eliminates one of the most glaring examples of unnecessary water consumption that occurs when people either forget to turn off their irrigation systems or rely entirely on automated timers that don't account for current weather. The regulation also addresses a practical safety concern by prohibiting sprinkler water from running onto streets, which can create slippery conditions for vehicles and pedestrians, particularly during winter months when the excess water might freeze and create dangerous ice patches. This aspect of the bylaw demonstrates how municipalities must consider not only resource conservation, but also public safety when crafting regulations about private property use. Guelph, located in southwestern Ontario, with a population of approximately 140,000 residents, has positioned itself as a leader in environmental stewardship and sustainable municipal practices. The city's approach to lawn watering reflects a broader commitment to responsible water use that recognizes the finite nature of local water resources and the importance of avoiding waste during times when natural precipitation is already providing adequate moisture. The bylaw gives residents a clear and enforceable standard for lawn care practices while encouraging more thoughtful approaches to landscape maintenance that work with natural weather patterns rather than against them, ultimately promoting both environmental responsibility and common-sense resource management. Fact 20. Bruce Peninsula creates towering ice castles. During the harsh winter months, Bruce Peninsula National Park transforms into one of Ontario's most spectacular natural ice galleries, where relentless winds and crashing waves from Georgian Bay combine with freezing temperatures to create towering ice formations that rise like frozen skyscrapers along the limestone shoreline. These massive ice structures, formed by the continuous spray and mist from waves hitting the rocky coast, can grow to impressive heights over the course of the winter season, creating an otherworldly landscape that draws photographers and winter enthusiasts from across the province. The ice formation process begins when waves crash against the peninsula's distinctive limestone cliffs and rocky shores, sending spray high into the air where it immediately freezes in the frigid winter temperatures. Layer by layer, this frozen spray accumulates on existing ice formations, gradually building upward and outward to create elaborate sculptures that can tower several stories above the shoreline, resembling massive frozen waterfalls or crystal palaces. Bruce Peninsula National Park, located at the northern tip of the Bruce Peninsula between Georgian Bay and Lake Huron, is particularly well-suited for creating these ice formations due to its exposed position and the unique geography of the limestone cliffs that make up much of the shoreline. The park's location means it receives the full force of winter storms moving across the Great Lakes, providing the wave action and wind necessary to continuously build these frozen structures throughout the cold season. The ice formations are constantly changing throughout the winter as new layers are added during each storm, and older sections may break away or shift due to temperature fluctuations. This dynamic process means that visitors who return to the same locations multiple times during the winter will often find completely different ice sculptures as nature continuously reshapes and rebuilds these temporary frozen masterpieces that exist only during the coldest months before melting away each spring. Fact 21. London mows overgrown lawns and bills owners. The City of London, Ontario takes lawn maintenance so seriously that municipal workers will personally mow any grass that exceeds 3.8 centimeters in height and then send the property owner a bill for the service. This unusually specific bylaw means that homeowners who let their grass grow beyond what amounts to roughly 1.5 inches will find city crews arriving unannounced to cut their lawn, whether they want the service or not. London's grass height regulation is part of the city's property standards bylaw, which aims to maintain neighborhood appearance and prevent properties from becoming unsightly or potentially harboring pests that might affect surrounding homes. The 3.8 centimeter limit represents the city's determination of what constitutes reasonable lawn maintenance, essentially requiring residents to keep their grass at what most people would consider a fairly short, well-manicured length. When city inspectors identify a property where the grass has exceeded the legal limit, they typically issue a notice to the homeowner, requiring them to cut the lawn within a specified time frame. If the property owner fails to comply with this notice, municipal workers will arrive with lawn mowing equipment and complete the job themselves, adding the cost of labor, equipment use, and administrative fees to the homeowner's municipal tax bill. This enforcement mechanism ensures that the city can maintain its aesthetic standards across all neighborhoods, while also guaranteeing that the cost of lawn maintenance doesn't fall on taxpayers who properly maintain their own properties. London, with a population of over 400,000 residents, uses this system to address situations where property owners are unable or unwilling to keep up with basic yard maintenance that affects the overall appearance of residential areas. The bylaw represents one of the most hands-on approaches to municipal property standards enforcement found anywhere in Ontario, where most cities limit themselves to issuing fines rather than actually performing the required maintenance work and billing property owners for the service. Fact 22. Creighton Minehouse's underground physics lab. Deep beneath the surface of Greater Sudbury, Ontario, at a depth of 6,800 feet underground, lies one of the world's most extraordinary scientific facilities, where researchers study some of the universe's most mysterious particles. SNOLAB, housed within the active Creighton mine operated by Vail Limited, holds the distinction of being the deepest underground physics laboratory on Earth, providing scientists with an ultra-clean environment shielded from cosmic radiation by nearly 2 kilometers of solid rock. The laboratory was originally constructed to house the Sudbury Neutrino Observatory, a groundbreaking experiment that used heavy water to detect neutrinos, tiny particles that constantly stream through the Earth but rarely interact with ordinary matter. The facility's extreme depth is crucial for this type of research because the massive amount of rock overhead blocks most cosmic rays and other sources of background radiation that would interfere with the sensitive detection equipment needed to study these elusive particles. SNOLAB began operations in 2004 with an initial investment of $70 million and received an additional $40.9 million in funding from Canada's Minister of Innovation in 2020 to expand its research capabilities. The facility now serves as a general-purpose underground laboratory where international teams of scientists conduct experiments related to dark matter detection, neutrino physics, and other fundamental questions about the nature of the universe. The laboratory maintains incredibly strict cleanliness standards, requiring all personnel and equipment to undergo extensive decontamination procedures before entering the research areas. Scientists must shower and change into special cleanroom clothing, while all materials brought into the facility are carefully screened to ensure they don't contain radioactive elements that could contaminate the experiments. This unique combination of active mining operations and cutting-edge physics research makes Creighton Mine one of the most scientifically significant locations in Ontario, where everyday mining work continues alongside experiments that could revolutionize our understanding of the fundamental building blocks of reality. Fact 23. Niagara Falls completely stopped for 30 hours. On March 29, 1848, one of the most extraordinary events in recorded history occurred when the thundering roar of Niagara Falls fell completely silent for 30 consecutive hours, leaving the famous waterfall reduced to a mere trickle and exposing the rocky riverbed that had been hidden beneath millions of gallons of rushing water for thousands of years. This unprecedented natural phenomenon happened when massive ice formations from Lake Erie, driven by powerful winds, became lodged at the source of the Niagara River and created a temporary dam that blocked virtually all water flow to the falls. The dramatic event began when strong wind patterns set the ice fields of Lake Erie in motion, causing millions of tons of ice chunks to pile up and jam together at the mouth of the Niagara River, near what is now Buffalo, New York. This natural ice dam was so effective at blocking the river that it reduced the mighty Niagara Falls to what witnesses described as little more than a stream, creating an eerie silence that residents found deeply unsettling after being accustomed to the constant background roar of the cascading water. Local residents, initially alarmed by the sudden quiet, soon realized they were witnessing a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to explore areas that had never been accessible to humans. Brave individuals ventured out onto the exposed riverbed, walking and even riding horses across rocks and boulders that were normally submerged under tons of rushing water. People collected artifacts, fossils, and souvenirs from the usually inaccessible river bottom, creating a carnival-like atmosphere as word spread of this incredible natural occurrence. The self-made ice dam held back the tremendous weight of Lake Erie's water until pressure and changing weather conditions caused it to give way. When the ice blockage finally broke apart, witnesses reported hearing a tremendous roar as the pent-up water burst through and restored Niagara Falls to its full power, ending one of the most remarkable natural events ever documented in North American history. Fact 24. Hamilton has over 100 waterfalls downtown. The city of Hamilton, Ontario has earned the remarkable title of Waterfall Capital of the World by containing more than 100 waterfalls within its municipal boundaries, creating one of the most concentrated collections of cascading water features found in any urban area on Earth. This extraordinary abundance of waterfalls exists because Hamilton sits directly on the Niagara Escarpment, a massive limestone ridge that creates the perfect geological conditions for streams and creeks to tumble dramatically over cliff faces as they flow toward Lake Ontario. The escarpment runs right through the heart of Hamilton, creating a natural staircase effect where dozens of waterways drop over rock ledges at various heights throughout the city. Some of these waterfalls are easily accessible from city streets and parks, while others require hiking through wooded trails and conservation areas to reach. But all contribute to Hamilton's unique character as a city where the sound of falling water is never far away. During the winter months, these waterfalls become even more spectacular as freezing temperatures transform the flowing cascades into elaborate ice sculptures and frozen curtains that attract photographers and winter enthusiasts from across Ontario. Popular waterfalls like Webster Falls, Tews Falls, and Albion Falls become completely different attractions in winter, with some freezing solid enough to allow ice climbing, while others maintain partial flow that creates stunning combinations of moving water and crystalline ice formations. The waterfalls range dramatically in size and character, from modest streams that drop just a few meters to impressive cascades like Tews Falls, which plunges 41 meters and ranks as Hamilton's tallest waterfall. Many of these natural features played important roles in the city's industrial development, as early settlers harnessed the water power to operate mills, factories, and other machinery that helped establish Hamilton as a major manufacturing center. The city has embraced its waterfall heritage by creating an extensive network of trails and viewing platforms that allow residents and visitors to experience these natural wonders safely while protecting the surrounding ecosystems. Fact 25. Oshawa law prohibits tree climbing completely. The city of Oshawa, Ontario has implemented one of the most comprehensive tree protection bylaws in Canada, making it illegal for anyone to climb trees, attach objects to trees, or place anything on trees located on municipal property throughout the entire city. This sweeping regulation goes far beyond typical municipal tree protection measures by specifically prohibiting any form of interaction with publicly owned trees, including activities that many people would consider harmless or traditional childhood pastimes. The municipal bylaw states that no person shall interfere with a tree or a part of a tree located on municipal property, including but not limited to attaching, affixing, or placing upon in any manner any object or thing to a tree or part of a tree, and climbing the tree. This comprehensive language means that everything from hanging decorations and installing tree swings to simply climbing up into the branches for recreation is strictly forbidden on any tree that belongs to the city. Oshawa, located in the Durham region east of Toronto, with a population of approximately 170,000 residents, designed this bylaw primarily as a safety measure to prevent injuries that could result from tree climbing accidents. City officials recognize that tree climbing, while often seen as a natural childhood activity, can indeed be dangerous and could potentially result in serious injuries that might create liability issues for the municipality. The regulation also serves to protect the trees themselves from damage that can occur when people attach objects to bark, break branches while climbing, or compress soil around root systems through repeated foot traffic. Many municipalities struggle with damage to public trees caused by well-meaning residents who attach everything from memorial plaques and birdhouses to holiday decorations without considering the long-term impact on tree health. By creating a blanket prohibition on all forms of tree interaction, Oshawa has eliminated any ambiguity about what activities are acceptable around municipal trees, while ensuring that these valuable urban forest resources remain protected for future generations to enjoy. Generations to enjoy. Generations to enjoy. Generations to enjoy. Generations to